This podcast is intended for a mature audience. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome back to Legend of the Bones. Following in the footsteps of giants, Legend of the Bones is a chimera. A mix of old-school tabletop RPG and dark fantasy storytelling. As its name might suggest, in Legend of the Bones the dice rule. There'll be no rerolls, no fudging the dice, no metacurrency. The roll of the bones will determine the character's destiny, and no one will be spared their fate. None shall escape the destiny of bone. Last time on Legend of the Bones. The focus shifted back to Canute and the crew of the Uvadraka, following their unexpected meeting with Beric's father, Jarl Einar. Having followed Einar's ship, the Vindnadla, to a nearby port, Canute learnt that Einar was in fact the lord of the settlement. His uncle told him that he had made a pact with the regional king to protect the Wayland coast from further Skarne raids in exchange for land and title. While the crew of the Uvadraka feasted and drank with their kin, Canute told his tale of meeting Beric and the companions, of discovering their blood bond, and the trouble brewing in Power Moor. For his part, Einar revealed that he and Beric's mother, Breya, were secretly wed through a binding of hands, meaning that Beric was legitimate and no bastard. But fate prevented Einar from returning for her and discovering they had a son before he learnt of Breya's death. The next morning, Einar took Canute for a ride across his newly won land, a wide and fertile vale, which they surveyed from atop a high bluff at the end of his domain. While Einar was eager to be united with his son, he was cautious about leading his men into a foreign civil war. Canute convinced his uncle that by supporting the Loyalists, he could counter the Skarne reputation as raiders, and form an alliance which could lead to opportunity. Einar resolved to join the war, but at that moment he was struck by an arrow. Turning to confront their assailant, 4 men emerged from the trees, one of whom was Meddraut, the lord who had been dispossessed when the local king had granted Einar land. But now we shall leave the Northmen on the cusp of battle and return to the main companions as they prepare to journey to Inis Myton to discover the secrets which lay in the tomb of the hero, Derwin. Chapter 74, Part 1, Day 67, The Hour Before Dawn. Party status: Beric, 61 out of 61 hit points. Lena, 39 out of 39 hit points. Valen, 22 out of 22 hit points. Talion, 33 out of 33 hit points. Eadith, 14 out of 14 hit points. Spells available. Valen has memorized Charm Animal, Push, Shield, Soothe, Entangle, Revive, Clairvoyance, Ignite, Unseal, and Dragon's Breath. Talion has memorized Resolve, Poetic Prose, Pitch, Rally, Imbue, and Lullaby. Eadith has memorized Flame, Sleep, Camouflage, and Knock. Lena can pray for 3 first-level miracles, 3 second-level miracles, 2 third-level miracles, 2 fourth-level miracles, and 1 fifth-level miracle. Valen woke with a sudden, breathless start, the remnants of the nightmare clinging to his mind. For several long heartbeats, he lay motionless, his chest rising and falling as he struggled to separate dream from waking. Gradually, the world around him took shape again. The dim chamber of the inn resolved itself out of the darkness. The low rafters overhead, the rough wooden bed beneath him, and a small table standing near the wall. Upon it sat a clay jug and a wash basin, their outlines barely visible in the thin blade of moonlight that slipped through the narrow crack between the shutters. Beside him came the soft, steady cadence of Lena's breathing. The sound was gentle, reassuring, a quiet anchor in the stillness of the night. Valen exhaled slowly, tension leaving his body, the fragments of the nightmare loosening their grip. It had only been a dream. There had been an urgency in their passion upon returning to Varfell, a desperate need to be one, to find comfort in the union of their bodies. Death had come far too close in the vault of Penmelkine, haunting them both, and such were the dark terrors they had faced, that they made both of them yearn for an affirmation of life. Careful not to wake her, Valen pushed aside the blanket and rose from the bed. The wooden floor was cool beneath his feet as he crossed the room to the window. He unlatched the shutters and eased them open. Pale moonlight spilled inside at once, washing the chamber in muted shades of grey, while the cool night air drifted in and brushed softly across his skin. He lifted his gaze to the sky. The moon hung high above the rooftops, already thinning as it waned from gibbous towards crescent. In a handful of nights, the darkness would deepen, and the sky would belong to the stars alone. Yet the constellations wheeled on their endless patterns, serene and indifferent, tracing their eternal courses across the heavens. They had witnessed the rise and fall of kingdoms, the misery of plague and famine, the red stain of wars that marked the pages of history. What was one more sorrow in the long bloody tale of mankind? Across the vault of night stretched a pale, milky band, faint yet unmistakable against the darkness. In Valen's native tongue, it was called Isan Wen, the White Causeway. Among the Whaler, it was believed to be the road upon which the souls of the dead journeyed to the other world. Amos had walked that road, so too had Demelza, and one day he would follow. He stood there in silence, lost in the slow turning of his thoughts, until the faint rustle of movement broke his reverie. A moment later, warm arms slipped around his waist from behind, and Lena's bare form pressed gently against his back.
Can you not sleep?
She murmured, placing a soft kiss upon his shoulder. Valen shook his head, his eyes still fixed on the stars.
What do you think happens when we die?
He asked quietly. For a moment she said nothing. Her breath warmed his skin as she rested her cheek against his back.
The Gospels tell us that Naya guides the soul to Solon's pedestal, the lodestar,
she said at last.
Here, judgment is passed. If the soul has lived in harmony with the Nine, then it passes through Solon's fire and enters Empyrean.
Empyrean?
Valen repeated the word. He knew it to be an afterlife of sorts, but nothing more.
It is said to be a place of perfect light,
Lena replied softly.
a place of warmth and understanding. There, we are reunited with those we love, held forever within the Nine's embrace.
Valen turned to face her then, the faint light outlining the thoughtful furrow of his brow.
Is that what you believe?
Lena lifted a hand and gently brushed her fingers along his cheek, a quiet smile touching her lips.
I believe that a life lived with love and kindness is its own reward,
she said.
And whatever waits beyond is not for us to know.
She drew him close. Their lips met, soft and lingering, and their bodies entwined as passion took hold once again. From a shadowed alley below, unseen eyes watched the window above. To that watcher, the two figures shone faintly with their own light. Two living auras drifting together until they touched and slowly merged into one. Then the lovers stepped back from the window, and the light was gone. Before I get into anything else, this is a level up episode for Eadith, as the mage reaches level 5. Rolling a d4 for new hit points. A 2. Eadith's hit points rise to 16. Let's see if she has more luck with ability score increases. Strength. 2. Intelligence. A 5. Teasingly close, but not good enough. Wisdom. 4. Dexterity. Another 4. Constitution. A 5. And finally, Charisma. A 6! Well, that was unexpected. Eadith's Charisma increases to 15. No extra bonus though. Well, that was a little underwhelming, but the best is yet to come. Because at 5th level, Eadith gets access to her first 3rd level spell. Given that she now possesses Demelza's spellbook, I will limit the roll to the 3 3rd level spells contained within it. A 1. Let's see. Okay, Eadith has learnt my homebrew spell, Frostbite. When cast, the mage's touch becomes sub-zero, freezing anything it comes into contact with. If directed towards an enemy, the caster must make a successful attack roll against the target's base armor class. A successful hit will deal 2d4 plus 2 points of magical cold damage. With that done, let's get back to the matter at hand. While the companions cannot afford to waste time, they have been through a lot over the past week. It makes sense then that they need a decent rest, both physically and mentally, as well as time for repairs and to resupply. They have already spent 1 day in Varfell, and will remain in the town for a further 4 before departing for Inismaitan. I won't bore you with the ins and outs of repairs and resupply. I'll deal with those mechanisms off mic, though I think it reasonable that Lord Chuok might offer to pay for the repairs at least. Now, according to my calendar of events, day 67 is Lena's birthday. Yes, I am sad enough to track such details. In reality, the vast majority of folk in my game world are not aware of the exact date of their births. Outside of state and religious bureaucracy, the passage of time is more commonly measured by the passing of seasons. At most, someone might know how many summers or winters they have been alive. Lena, though, is the daughter of an important man, and is therefore likely to know the day her birthday falls. However, being modest, this is not something she would likely mention. Still, I will mark on the cleric's character sheet that she is now 21 years old. It's clear to me that this remarkable young woman is wise beyond her years. Speaking of which, you may recall that Lena lost a point of wisdom as the result of the corrupted warden's Hellgaze attack, which has left her with mental trauma and recurrent nightmares. As it happens, at a high enough level, clerics can pray for the homebrew miracle of Cure Mind. This relieves the target of one single mental trauma, phobia, psychosis or addiction, restoring 1 point of wisdom, if lost, as a result of the condition. The cleric must pray undisturbed for 12 hours for the miracle to be granted. I think, now in the sanctuary of Varfell, Lena will spend the time from dawn till dusk praying to help reconcile her trauma. Mechanically, a single prayer check is required, but given the length of the meditation, the wisdom check is made at a -2 penalty, meaning that Lena will need to roll a 14 or less. A 17. It would seem that Lena is not ready to come to terms with the experience. I think I'll rule that she may not attempt to cure herself again until after she is next leveled up. Now, what about the mysterious watcher we heard about in the last segment? Before the start of this episode, I rolled for a wandering encounter while the companions are in the town, and got a positive result. Rolling against my urban encounter table, I got a special NPC. I had an idea about who this would be, which was confirmed by my oracle. I won't reveal any more now. Instead, we will discover what happens in the narrative. Chapter 72, Part 2, Day 67, Late Morning. Party status. The party status is unchanged, except that Eadith has memorized Frostbite. The streets of Varfell thrummed with the hustle and bustle of daily life. The clear ringing of blacksmiths' hammers echoed from open forges, while nearby came the steady rasp and groan of carpenters' saws biting through fresh timber. Traders called out their wares over the murmur of haggling voices, while wheels creaked beneath laden carts. The scent of freshly baked bread carried on the breeze, tainted only by the faint stench of the town's middens and tanneries. The settlement had not entirely escaped damage from the recent storm. Here and there, rooftops lay ragged where thatch had been torn away, exposing soot-darkened beams beneath. The heavy rains had left their mark below as well. Cellars stood damp and sour, their spoiled stores of grain and ale dragged out into the sunlight to be salvaged or surrendered. Still, Varfell endured as it always had. Beneath the bright summer sky, folk worked with renewed determination, mending walls, relaying thatch, and setting their affairs in order. Life went on with purpose, old and new. Down by the docks, that purpose was plain. Lord Churok's men moved with the disciplined efficiency of professional warriors. 2 long barges sat low in the river, their hulls steadily filling. Barrels of ale, salted meat, cheese and bread were secured for the journey ahead. Alongside these provisions came the tools of war. Bundles of spears and axes bound in leather wrappings, and rows of shields whose painted faces bore Churok's emblem of a white wyvern upon a red field. By Lord Petroc's command, 200 of Churok's most seasoned warriors would journey down the River Nade to join the loyalist host gathering at Penglanow. There was honour and renown to be won, and no man wished to be left behind, while others carved their reputation. Yet Varfell could not be stripped bare. It stood upon a contested frontier, ever watchful of the designs of the renegade, Polmir. Its defence would fall uneasily to those untested by war, or wearied by too many. Lena had left the inn early to pray in the cool stillness of Varfell's church, while Beric and Talion had taken up Churok's generous offer to select horses for the companions from his personal stables. With the others occupied, it was left to Valen and Eadith to walk the streets, wandering between the traders and artisans to gather what supplies they could. The pair moved through the market square as stall owners barked prices for fresh meat, grain and cloth, their voices competing with the bleat and bellow of livestock and the rhythmic clack of a loom from a nearby cottage. Valen slowed, a prickle of heat rising at the nape of his neck, a sensation born not of the late morning sun. Beside him, Eadith halted abruptly, her breath hitching in her throat.
You feel it also?
Valen asked, seeking to confirm his intuition. Eadith gave a small, tight nod, her eyes scanning the crowd. Something had shifted. The mood in the market soured into something febrile, almost frantic. People began to cluster around stalls selling food, meat pies, cheese, bread, jostling and pressing forward with unusual urgency. There was little haggling now, only hurried exchanges of coin. Others simply took what they desired, with no thought of payment. the stallholders unable to object to the overwhelming demand. Some did not even move on once they had bought their fill, instead tearing into their purchases where they stood, eating with a strange ravenous haste rather than storing goods in their baskets as one might expect.
There!
Eadith exclaimed in a hushed tone, her lips barely moving as she tilted her head towards the far side of the square, where a narrow alleyway lay wedged between a grain store and a tanner's yard. Through the shifting press of bodies, a figure stood motionless against the stained timber of the alley wall, gaze fixed unerringly upon them. To mundane eyes, she was just another townswoman, but to those that possessed the sight, she was a beacon of soft blue. She wore a long tunic, dyed madder red, which clung to her ample form, while her face was framed by dark hair tied in a braid that crowned her head. Her features were pleasant, attractive even, yet there was something unnerving about her, as she possessed a quiet magnetism which could not be ignored. Without breaking gaze, the woman inclined her head in subtle acknowledgement.
Lamorna,
Valen uttered with disbelief. He knew her instantly, though they had never met. She gave a slight smile, then touched something concealed beneath her dress, her lips moving in inaudible speech. In that instant, the tension broke. The strange fever which had gripped the crowd vanished as though it had never been. The press of bodies eased, voices returned to their usual rhythms, and the market resumed its familiar pulse. Most seemed wholly unaware of what had just passed. Only a few lingered in confusion, bewildered by the food in their mouths, for which they had no appetite. Valen hurried forward, Eadith close behind. Protests rose around him as he pushed through the mass of people, but he paid no heed. For a moment he caught sight of Lamorna again, and then she was gone. I don't really want to hand Lamorna, and by association the Eye of Seletha, to the companions without any randomness. That would be far too contrived. So I'm going to make a few rolls to see where this might go. I already made one roll of Mike to establish whether Lamorna had been corrupted by the Hellstone. That result was a no but, which I took to mean that while she had not turned to evil, she had not entirely escaped its influence, with the Hellstone affecting her physically, bestowing upon her an unnaturally youthful appearance. My next question is whether she has deliberately sought out Valen. A 5. That's a straight yes. Does she wish to speak with him? A 4. That's a yes but. So does Lamorna mean Valen harm? A 3. That's a no but. Okay, so the question is, why has Lamorna sought Valen? Time to consult the mythic event meaning chart for a prompt. Rolling percentile dice twice. Action first. 65. Attach. Now for the subject. 100. Information. Attach information. Okay, so clearly she wants to impart some knowledge. But what? So does Lamorna have some knowledge about another way to destroy the Hellstones? A 5. That's a straight yes. Does that mean she knows the location of another rift? A 3. That's a no but. What about Derwin's tomb? Can it be found there? And does she have the knowledge about what it is? A 4. That's a yes but. Okay, I have an idea forming, but I'm going to roll in the mythic event meaning chart again for a prompt on the nature of this knowledge. Action first. 21. Release. Now the object. 94. Elements. Release elements. Oh, I know exactly what this is. Chapter 72, Part 3, Day 67, Afternoon. Party status. The party status is unchanged. Valen and Eadith broke free of the crowd and reached the mouth of the alleyway, just in time to see Lamorna vanish around the far corner. They hurried along, beneath the looming shadow of the grain store, the acrid stench of the tannery catching in their throats. At the corner, the alley stretched some 20 paces before meeting a bustling street, then continued beyond, where Lamorna stood, luring them onwards. Valen moved to follow, but Eadith caught him by the arm.
What if she means us harm?
Caution threaded her voice.
You saw what she did to those people.
Valen half turned, though his eyes never left Lamorna.
You may be right, but I must know her intent. If she has been corrupted by the Eye of Slethra, then we must act.
I hope I am wrong. If she proves false, we cannot hope to match her power.
Ignoring their doubts, they pressed on, reaching the crossing, only to see Lamorna once again disappearing down the passage beyond. The pursuit wound through several more alleyways, Lamorna always keeping at least 30 yards ahead, until at last the route opened into a quiet, enclosed courtyard near the easternmost edge of the town. Here, an ancient, abandoned structure stood in decay. Its construction was unlike anything else in the town, not least because it was entirely built of stone. The walls, crumbling in many places, had clearly lost stones to salvage, while its clay-tiled roof gaped with holes. A once covered arcade of broken pillars had once likely offered shelter around its perimeter, while directly ahead, a bronze door, blue-green with age, stood slightly ajar.
I've never seen a building like this,
Valen remarked, his curiosity piqued.
It is Valerian.
Eadith replied, referring to the long-dead empire of legend. As a child, she had travelled to the southern realms with her father, where the legacy of the Valerian Empire still endured.
But I never knew their reach had stretched this far.
With nowhere else for Lamorna to have gone, they approached the entrance. Passing through the bronze door, the pair found themselves in a sparse chamber. Stone benches lined the walls, while the floor was laid with clay tiles, many cracked and broken, with weeds forcing their way through the mortar. To the left, an archway led to a smaller, equally barren room, clearly intended as a communal latrine, while ahead, another archway led to a larger chamber. They moved forward, and found it dominated by a rectangular depression sunk several feet into the floor. Here, the roof had collapsed in places, and the recent rains had left inches of stagnating water pooled below. A number of pigeons had made their roost in the rafters, their droppings fouling the already filthy tiles, and they cooed gently at the pair's presence. On the left wall, a single bronze door offered the only way further into the structure.
What is this place?
Valen's voice was low, and edged with caution as much as curiosity.
I think it was once a bathhouse.
Eadith answered, drawing a raised brow from Valen.
Such places are common in the southern realms, and some are still in use. But most believe the ruins to be haunted.
They approached the door, and as it opened, a wave of warm, moist-laden air rolled out to meet them. Valen recoiled at first, then leaned forward, peering into the darkness beyond. He drew the moonstone from his pouch, its pale light spilling across the threshold. Another chamber emerged from the gloom. 4 pillars supported a stone ceiling, while benches once again lined the walls. A pair of bronze floor-standing braziers lay toppled, and several tiles were fashioned as vents, from which thin wisps of steam curled upwards. The humidity quickly made both mages sweat, while the floor felt warm through the leather soles of their boots. To the left stood yet another bronze door. With nothing else to note, Valen stepped forward and pulled it open. The groan of ancient metal echoed as the final chamber was revealed. Here too, a stone ceiling was supported by sturdy columns, while against the far wall, a statue of some long-dead goddess, holding a vessel, stood raised upon a plinth. Upon the floor, a wide picture made of fragments of faded coloured tile depicted a naked woman riding a dolphin. The bizarre image was partially obscured by a pile of discarded clothes. Beyond, a few steps led down to a large circular pool of steaming water. And there, submerged to her shoulders, was Lamorna, naked save for a golden amulet hanging from her neck. An amulet centered by a ruby, glinting in the soft light. The Eye of Selethra. Thank you for listening to Legend of the Bones. I hope you've enjoyed the show. If you like what you've heard, then please consider rating and reviewing the show in your podcatcher of choice. Not only do I love seeing the feedback, but it really does help the show to reach new listeners. As always, where would I be without my amazing cast of voice talent? Just one person to thank this time. Returning to the show, playing the role of Eadith, is Chloe Elliott. Chloe is an actor, singer, composer and content creator, as well as being a cast member of A Deck of Many Aces, an actual play D&D podcast. My sincere thanks to Chloe, whose links I'll put in the show notes. You can also help by liking or reposting new episode announcements, or by recommending the show online or to a friend. You really can't beat the power of word of mouth. Alternatively, if you would like to show your appreciation by buying me a metaphorical cup of tea, then I have a Ko-fi page at ko-fi.com/Legend of the Bones. Any donations will go towards the show's running costs. Finally, I'd love to know what you think of the show, and I do respond to every message I receive. So with that in mind, you can contact me on X at LegendBones, Blue Sky at LegendBones, Mastodon at LegendBones, at ttrpg-hangout.social, Instagram at LegendOfTheBones, email at legendofthebones@gmail.com, or go to legendofthebones.blogspot.com for show notes, house rules, character profiles, art, maps and more. Join me next time to find out what awaits our adventurers as the bones decide their fate. None shall escape the destiny of bone.
Are you looking for a great listen? Fancy stepping into a world where the heroes are forged in the fires of fate and where every decision could result in glory or ruin? Then welcome to Realm of Rolls, the home of beautifully produced RPG fantasy adventure podcasts. Join our dynamic and experienced cast of creative dungeon masters and players as they bring colourful heroes with secrets, villains with motives, and allies with agendas to life, all wrapped in thrilling, inspiring and immersive settings, where fate can be a friend or foe, and destiny can take a dark turn or an unexpected twist in the blink of an arcane eye. Experience the rush of intense combat, the highs and lows of emotion, and let's not forget that the only thing more unpredictable than the plot is the roll of the dice. Pick up the links to our podcast streaming and socials, latest news and a showcase of trailers at realmofrolls.co.uk.